Step into Mind Matters, where we reveal the high-stakes world of CEOs, from their first-day jitters to game-changing strategies, and equip you with invaluable insights and practical advice essential for your personal growth and leadership journey. And now, Mind Matters.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Kendall Raessler, your host, and today I'm excited to welcome the distinguished guest, Jim Donnelly, to our podcast. As the CEO of Wayne Bank, Jim holds a wealth of knowledge. This episode is filled with engaging and insightful conversation of Jim's journey. We can't wait to jump in and discuss and share valuable insights with you. Thank you for joining us today, Jim.
Thanks for having me, Kendall. I'm really glad to be here with you.
Yes. And you know, Jim, before we jump into learning everything, I'd like to actually give our listeners a little deeper understanding of your background, of your professional journey, any bio or highlights that you could share with them, and milestones would be fantastic. We're really eager to learn more about you.
All right. Well, when I graduated college, I got asked to run for office and served for 8 years in the state legislature in Maine. And Maine is a citizens legislature, so I also was asked, offered the opportunity to go into a bank's management training program. So I was able to kind of serve my community while helping people in the community as a banker as well. And the training program was great. It introduced you into a lot of different components of what the bank did, how it operated, everything from a teller all the way through marketing, PR, telecommunication, so it was lots of very broad. And from there, you launched out into the start of your career, which I started as after the management training program as a branch manager in a very rural border town along the Canadian border.
Wow, so you're very close to us Canadians up here. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
You understand the difference between warm weather and cold weather then, and how to dress for it, I assume.
Absolutely. When people tell me, "Oh, you wait till you see winter here," and I just laugh.
Yeah. Yes, we have got that down pat up here. I listened to that, and that's a very interesting start to start that young of age to go through all that training. When you actually became the CEO of Wayne Bank, after all your training and what you went through, what was your largest hurdle that you had in the first week?
So I think coming in to a bank that you didn't grow up in. So if I had been at Wayne Bank all of my career, then I would have known a lot of people. I would have had a good sense of the community. So it was really doing a deep dive on where I was living, where I was moving into, what the opportunities were, and most importantly, to go meet my team and make sure that they got an opportunity to ask me uncomfortable questions, have me talk them through where we were and where I hope to take the bank, and get the buy-in from the team early on. So I'd say my first month I spent on the road, going to every branch, visiting with employees, and asking them what was the pebble in their shoe? What was the little thing that if we did just a little better, they would like their job better, they could serve their customers better, we could serve our community better. And I came back with a list of about 72 things. Then I got the executive team to say everything from, this is a really horrible color on the wall behind me, can we change it, through to how the entryway may be not great for people who had a disability, or I really wish I could dress more comfortably. Just an array of things. Some of it was a physical plant, but others weren't. And then show those employees that I heard them and what they said was important. And we addressed all 72 of those things in the next 45 days. And we reported back to them that we addressed them, what was done, and then how do we move forward from there. And so, like I said, it was a lot of small things. But the little things, the small things are the big things. When you want to show somebody you care. And if you're going to be their leader, they need to know you care about them.
That is a very strong approach. And I think that approach will give our listeners a lot of self-confidence to understand that the details matter, that the people around you matter. And I hear that loud and clear, and I love that. And I want to ask you, From you have, on the other hand, you have the people you're looking after, and you're making sure you're hearing, you're listening, you're understanding. And then on the other hand, you have your board of directors. And your board of directors have sometimes some different goals and things inside. How did you balance the two of them? But more importantly, how did you match those 72, and I'm going to use your words, pebbles, to make sure that they matched up with what your board of directors were doing? Because, of course, you got to make sure that it all flows together.
So there's transparency and explaining the why, right? So Simon Sinek does the why. So if you talking to the board about why was I doing this, why was it important, and what we were trying to do, the board actually embraced it and thought it was a great idea. They loved what we were doing, and the board serves. They're from different places in the bank, so they were hearing that I was out visiting, and I think it helped build some credibility with the board early on.
So, was there any mentors that you had as well that helped bring you to this? So I understand with your board that they were on side with you, and that's very important. To be able to handle, manage, and work with your board is very important. And of course, your people, like you just mentioned. But was there any other mentors, like you bring up Simon as an example, but anybody else would be a mentor for you that has really helped you shape your career?
I've been fortunate to have a number of mentors throughout my career, and some of them were the CEO. So when I worked at KeyBank, they had a formal mentoring program, and the president of KeyBank of Maine was my mentor. And he was a really practical guy that had a lot of really good advice for me on how to get to the next level in my career, things I should concentrate on, work on, challenge me on how things were going. Then I went to work for a really small community bank, and that CEO was one of those guys that could do anything. He was a blueberry farmer before work. He plowed driveways. He did tax returns for like 200 people in town, and he ran the most profitable bank in the state. And he always had a very common sense approach to how he did everything. And so he would challenge you on, if you're in too many meetings, he'd look around the room and say, look at all the salary dollars sitting around here talking to each other instead of out getting work done, right? He was always, how do you move the ball forward? And really natively brilliant guy. And, so it was great to learn from him and the work ethic and the high energy he did the job. And then I went to work at my last bank, and the pebble from the shoe is actually something that I should give him credit for, because I actually stole it from him. He would ask that question, and just it unlocked people's willingness to share. Because if you go in and say, well, what's not working, what's broken, well, people want to be nice to the CEO. They don't. But when you ask them for a little thing and you start the conversation, it grows a little bit more. And so I did learn a lot from that CEO as well. And then I've made friends with people who have been business leaders in a number of different businesses that I'll call and just say, how would you do this? And so when I first got into this job, I called about 20 CEOs from other banks and said, what did you do on day one that you wish you hadn't? And what do you wish you could have gone back 5 years that you wish you'd done in day one? And every single one of them took time to share those thoughts with me. And I had some great conversations, took some good notes, had a lot of laughs, and made some good friends.
That is a very common sense approach. I like that. How long have you been at Wayne Bank for? I haven't told our listeners.
Just about 2 years. So
just 2 years. Okay. So you had a challenge. You've got to see the market, especially what's happened with pandemics and the changes in business and the stress that you would have to go through in the position that you're in. How did you handle your work-life balance? Because during these times, it takes a lot of your time up. How do you handle that? How do you plan that?
I'm probably not the best advisor for people on work-life balance, because I really just love working. And so I work a lot. And probably the balance side is maybe my nerdier side coming out is I love to read books about who else has done it well, other strategies, other industries. So I just read a lot of periodicals. I'll read whatever the newest business books are and just continuously try to learn from somebody else. I will admit that I do like to vacation and go places, but I still check my email constantly. So I'm not the one that'll tell you how to unplug and do it well. I think in this job, it's hard to do that, especially when you're newer in it. It's the expectation of availability is pretty high.
That makes a lot of sense. When I'm talking to CEOs, I have found that a lot of them had the challenge when they moved into the role that they had to worry about life-work balance, but they had to worry about how their team looked at them. If the CEO is putting in a number of huge hours overtime, well, should they not? How did you address that with them so that you had a cohesive and motivated team to continue that way?
So I let them know, if I email you at 11 o'clock at night, I do not expect an answer, right? If I need you at 11 o'clock at night, I'll call you. So if I'm moving something off my desk onto yours for tomorrow, don't worry about it tonight. This is just the way I work. I don't expect that of you. If we have an emergency or something's going wrong, or we really need to have all hands on deck, like when we were doing PPP lending, that's different. Then you do what you have to do to support your team, your community, and make sure that the bank's in good shape. But I try to coach people, especially my direct reports, to know I don't expect you to be available 24/7, but it's okay to reach out to me. And I tell them, look, if I'm out on a date with my wife and we're having a nice dinner and you call, I'm not going to answer it. I will text you, do you need me now? And if you say yes, I'll step out. But I'm not going to pick up the phone when I'm sitting there having a nice dinner with my wife, or if we're watching a show that we want to watch. So don't worry about interrupting me. I won't let you interrupt me. But if you need me, reach out. And the same the other way around. I don't expect you to be available 24/7. You should have a work-life balance. I don't want to burn out the team because the way I work. I want them to work the way they work, and make sure that the cohesiveness of the team is strong and that we're able to deliver results in a regular fashion without frying everybody and having everybody be hectic all the time.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. How many branches do you have in Wayne Bank?
We have 29 branches. We have 14 in Pennsylvania and 15 in New York.
So how many employees is that roughly?
286.
286. I am so happy to have you on here because we've had CEOs that are smaller branches, number of employees, and each one of these comes with different challenges. We've got CEOs that are day one, started yesterday and learning everything and going through it. We have ones that have been doing it for 30 years and they have larger banks. What would you find the largest challenge going from the smaller number of employees to the biggest? What was your biggest hurdle that you had to overcome with that?
So the last bank I was at, there were 1,100 employees in the bank. And when I went from a really small bank to a bigger bank, now down to a more moderate sized bank, it's realizing that if you have a good idea, you're in charge of it, because there isn't somebody to pass it off to. There's not a specialized department that does that. And it's also that when you have a lot of good ideas, they do pile on each other, and you find out that the IT department or the accounting department is necessary for all of them. So you may be working on one of those things or two of those things, but having the discipline around a project management team, looking at the Gantt chart and laying out who is actually involved, so you don't accidentally fry somebody who is now thinking, I have 15 things to do and none of them are my day job. So how do I keep up with this? You got to be able to make sure that you're managing your resources well, and that you have available team members to help. And that also helps you spread it around a little. So you may have more younger people on the team who are dying for that opportunity to be involved in a project or a process. And now you can invite them in rather than wear that one person that is your go-to. You know that she's going to get it done. She gets it done every time. Well, you're going to burn her out. It's a good opportunity to spread the wealth and develop your team to broaden and deepen your knowledge base.
This episode is powered by Onist AI. Onust's optimized onboarding process and minimized documentation result in an expedited and seamless financing journey for clients, enhancing their contentment and commitment. Through identity verification, financial data validation, and creditworthiness assessment, our software empowers companies to make well-informed financing choices, bolster application speed and customer uptake by 30%, and cut operational costs by a significant 70% with Onust AI. For more information, visit onust.ai.
That sounds like you've done a bit of scaling before. So you've had to learn to understand the individual people as well. Like you said, you get to know them, like you said, went out and talking to them. That I love that management style. I love that style where you're listening, you're learning, but you're taking each type and you're moving it forward. I look at scaling businesses and I ask, so when you go into Wayne Bank, there's a number of branches already there. But you know, as we all know, every shareholder wants a better return than they got the previous year. So the board of directors will be saying, how do we move this up? How do we scale this to get more revenue? Do you find you've been using technology a fair bit to move you forward? Or what are you using to scale yourself for those needs?
So the first thing is to understand where you're at, right? What are your current, where do you work best today? And what are your best opportunities inside your current footprint? So you're never 100% successful on using software, on developing a market you're already in. There's always ways to improve what you currently have. And it's first kind of getting what are the low-hanging fruit we could work on first, right? What is the customer experience? And if we do more of it, is that good? Or should we work on developing our customer experience before we spread it out further? And so we've done a fair amount of customer journey mapping to make sure that we're efficient in the process, and then all the way through that the customer experience is forefront in our minds, and that we're speeding up things, we're communicating with them, and we're delivering a good experience. Then we have the right thing to take out. So are we in the right markets? What's the next best opportunity? And technology is, your tech stack is where you start, but where do we need to go? And, so if your banks are going to be cautious about AI, but there are places that you could use AI today. And is that a way to teach the team on how to do it? Is it a scary thing? Or is it a useful thing? It's both, right? Mm-hmm. And then what are the other, as technology and contracts come up, what's the next best thing out there to give our customers a better experience and add some efficiency into our system? So in some of our consumer lending, we were able to grow it by 35% without adding any additional people because we got better technology. Right. So there's a better return on those loans to the shareholders, and a better earning scale going forward, and gives a better job to the employees, because some of the jobs that they were doing in that process before were redundant and not very interesting. And now the technology helps take that off of their desk and put them into the thinking jobs. And so people are happy and customers are happy, shareholders are happy.
That is a fantastic answer. And when you're scaling them and when you're scaling your business, I look at what you've just said and I look at different products that you have to come up with, because the market is constantly changing. Your competitors are constantly changing. How do you assess the right type of product? How do you assess the right market? If I were to tell younger CEOs or newer CEOs, how would they do that? What would your words be?
You can't be all things to all people. So figure out what you do well and what you don't do well that you want to, and focus on those things. So we're focusing on taking better care of the customers we have. And then we're looking at inside of our coverage, what are the things we're doing that are not as good as they should be? And what are the missing components? And sometimes that involves hiring a consultant to come in and give you, the 300-foot view of what you're missing and what are the pieces you're missing. One of the things that companies will do, you hire a new piece of software, you get it rolled out, but you don't change your policies or your procedures. So you treat the new opportunity the same as the old one, and then you're shocked that there's nothing improved or better, right? So you got to make sure that you're looking holistically on how does this benefit the process and people. So finding, doing a better job on what you do, and the things that you want to do better is get a good plan and know where your starting point is and map out how do you get from here to there.
So what would be your largest challenge you see? Let's start with technology first. It's great that it helps you, takes redundancy, and makes the client experience quicker and faster. But what is your largest fear with technology as the CEO of Wayne Bank?
That I'll pick the wrong one, right? So there's a lot of options. Everyone that you talk to, each one of the technology salespeople will tell you how theirs is the best. And if you pick the wrong one and it doesn't deliver, and now you're locked into a contract that, weighs you down. And at the end of the day, that's on me. Even if I have a team looking at it, the buck stops here. So that would be my biggest fear, is that we do something that is wrong. It's the wrong one, and you've taken the wrong path. And now you've got to do a corrective action, go back. So you've wasted time and you've wasted money. And you haven't delivered what you promised. So that's where I may break a little sweat on technology, is I know enough to know I don't know enough.
Mm-hmm. I've been speaking with other CEOs, and they've brought up the word fraud. Chat GPT is a wonderful thing that we all know about and has a lot of great assets to it. But there's also the component that it can make up W-2s. It can make up financial information, letters of employment, so wonderfully done. How do you feel you can combat that?
Well, as a community bank, we should know our customer through the formal know your customer process that we're required to do, regulatory. But we also serve 29 plus small communities. And so there are friends and neighbors we're serving. So should have a pretty good idea on who they are. And as we go into the broader market, and we might have a bot applying for a loan or fraud, it is scary. There are systems that some banks bought that are voice authentication for you to get into your account. And darn it, that AI will imitate your voice and sound more like you than you do. So how do you defeat that? And it's really having one AI defeat the other, and that's a scary proposition. On how do you really? And it's going to be a multi-factor addressing of that fraud, and some of it is still going to get through.
I believe it will. It's a constant changing model that will continue to go as technology grows and as different challenges come to us. I look at challenges, and this is a major question for community banks, is how do you overcome them? They have a higher buying power. They have more money than everybody else to spend. What is a strategy that you've used to go after their market?
Well, I think I said it before, it's knowing what you're good at and knowing where you don't deserve to be or shouldn't be. So part of it is we should be delivering high tech, but we can't out tech the big banks. Their technology budgets are larger than my assets for my bank, right? So it's not even a David and Goliath. It's like an ant and Goliath. But what can I do that is harder for them to do? I mentioned earlier that we're serving our friends and neighbors. I can call them by name. I can sit down and help them go through things. I know the resources in the community. We can bring that to them. It's not as easy to do when you're centrally located in a big city somewhere far away as if when you're sitting right there with the customer. So I think that's where we compete, is the customization, the understanding of the needs, and not trying to sell a customer what is good for the bank. Solve a customer's problem with a solution that we have. Don't sell them things, solve their problems, help their lives be a little bit better. And that's where we compete with anybody.
Jim, that answer strikes me directly to my heart because it's treating people like people, doing what you do is best. And that fits really well. I want to ask one last question, Jim.
Sure.
And the last question is this. If you were sitting talking face to face with a number of CEOs, we'll say new, 2 years, and 4 years experience, what knowledge, what words of wisdom would you give them? And you can split it up if you like to, Jim.
I think it is, don't think you have all the answers. Be willing to be humble and listen. Most of the people that are on the front line doing the job day to day have some good ideas to share. They may just not know how to do them. And the CEO should be able to bring the resources. I told a couple of people that my job is to make your job easier. So you know what you're supposed to do. You know you're supposed to take care of the customer. You know you're supposed to make a commercial loan. You know you're supposed to bring in deposits. What can I do as your leader to help things be easier? What are the barriers for you to do your job really well that I can help improve? So other CEOs have different ways of doing things. My way is to try to bring a collaborative approach to how do we solve problems and do transparency on where we're going and why, so that we can all try to go there together.
Well, Jim, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us on our podcast. You shared some invaluable insights to us, and your contributions have been tremendous. The team here would like to thank you very much for spending your valuable time here with us and going through this and giving the insight to these young CEOs that are working their way through the journey that you've gone through. So thank you very much for your time and collaboration. It's been a real pleasure to have you on here.
Thank you, Kendall. It's been so much fun in spending this time with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you found this conversation valuable, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. We will see you next time on Mind Matters.